me give you a quick update on this GSXR-750 that I acquired and mentioned that I was going to be doing a video on for you guys. With all the bikes that I've bought, primarily the first two sport bikes for my current ownership experience, they've needed work. The RC51 is a 2000 model, and as old as it is and the mileage that it has, it kind of went without saying. So that one, as I mentioned in that video, I had to do a fuel pressure regulator, which basically manages the throttle and idling. And so that was a huge job to do, and that it was messy, it was labor intensive, and I had to essentially do what you see here: pull the tank up, take the air box off, and it was just a pain in the ass. But it was well worth the work. The bike runs phenomenally well. With this GSXR, it is a 2006, a K6 bike. Any of you who are enthusiasts of the GSXR lineup and understand the K6, K7 and that whole era, know that there are some little issues that occur that make owning it a little love-hate. And once you figure out what the solutions are to the problems that exist with those bikes, you're a lot better off for it. And one of the things I had to learn with this bike, after riding it one day up in the hills and having a good time and thrashing it, and it was a little hot that day, there's a thing called the redirector rectifier. What that is a voltage regulation module. This guy doesn't look like much, but you'll see this on every bike. And what that does is it regulates voltage through the circuitry of the bike. It also determines how much voltage goes back to the battery. One of the main problems with this is that it sits here. That's a radiator. That's called an engine. You put two things on the outside of something. It's called a sandwich, but it's also called an enclosure. You got heat radiating from both directions on this. This thing itself regulates voltage. Guess what goes through it? Energy in the form of heat. So you've got heat times heat on top of heat, and you end up with hot, really hot. So what happens is this thing starts to short out. It doesn't regulate the way it should, and it ends up sending way too much energy back into your battery. The result of that, your battery looks like it is on steroids. It starts to warp and morph, and then you start to smell this very foul odor that smells like rotten eggs or sulfur. It's not a very comfortable thing to have to, experience if you happen to be out on your bike, which I was, and you're not sure what the hell's going on. So one of the things I did was to research, how do you deal with this? One of the things is just obviously replace this. Great YouTube video, I'll reference it at some point when I can pull that up, but since I'm at the side of the bike right now, I can't. The video basically showed that you can test these with your test meter, which I did, and I found that this was faulty. And essentially it was sending crazy voltage out, which basically killed the battery that was in the bike. When I took the seat off, the battery was smoldering, smoke's coming out, and it looked like it was literally about to pop. Very unsettling, very scary experience. I managed to nurse the bike downhill all the way over to an AutoZone, well, all the way to the end of a road, and then take an Uber to an AutoZone, get the new battery, put the battery in, ride home, only to have that battery start to go through the same phase. So this was the culprit and where the problem lies. And now that I've figured out how to diagnose and replace that, I ordered the part, and now I've relocated where this will actually go. I did buy a kit. The bracket I don't have with me at the moment, but the kit basically is a bracket that attaches here. Here's the original bracket. The unit sits on this. So this is the front plate. The unit sits like so, facing the radiator. And it's just positioned in here, and that's the horn. So the bracket actually that you buy, the aftermarket bracket, positions it right here on the edge, and then your rectifier sits on this side. Well, it's getting a lot cooler airflow. It's not in the middle, sandwiched between the two heat sources. But as you know, with bikes, the engine heats up, and so does the frame. So you're still going to have heat signatures coming off of this. Even though this is a better solution, it's not really solving the problem entirely. So one of the other things I learned through a very good colleague of mine, Devin, who happens to be my sales guy at Irv Seaver. We're really good friends now, and he told me that, yeah, you know, that's one of the common things you find with these bikes. They're great bikes once you source them out, but that's an issue that you have to deal with. And he mentioned that a lot of people redirect or relocate theirs in the airbox. And so what I've done, I've taken my airbox out. I took it home because I didn't have all the tools here in my shop or my garage, and basically positioned this thing right in the middle of my airbox. So I put it in the middle so that it's out of the pathway of where the air flows. This is actually sitting right up against where the foam goes to the duct that runs from the front of the bike. So you got one of these on each side. They flow through here and out here. So there are the holes for that. And so what I did was I positioned this directly in the middle, so it's not in the flow of the air. It doesn't obstruct anything. Not that that would be a big deal. And it's right underneath where the filter is. So the filter pops in here over the top. I'll show that in a second. But essentially you got nothing but cool air rushing over this thing. So even as it heats up, the fact that there's air that's going to continually be coming into the bike from this point is very valuable, and it will definitely prolong the life of this device as well as the life of a battery. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up on what's going on with that bike. Check out the video on the Kawasaki Ninja 1000, but give that a look as well. But I wanted you guys to kind of know what I've been dealing with on this bike. I didn't record when I did the fix on my RC51, so I thought this would be a good opportunity now that I have this thing apart to show you what I'm doing with it, to deal with some of the little, you know, the little idiosyncrasies with this bike that you can resolve and then not have to deal with that at all anymore. And that in turn allows you to enjoy this bike to its fullest, because this is a fantastic bike. I'm very excited to have it. I can't wait to really get deeper into the riding aspect of it. But you know, having this thing sorted out, one less thing you have to worry about on the road, because the one thing you don't want is a battery exploding under your ass. I don't know if any of you have had that happen, but I would imagine it's probably not very pleasant. So at any rate, just want you guys to see how that looked. I'll put the filter in because I was about to close this thing up. Put the horn back on.